Okay, I think we're good to go. Very good morning, everybody. You're very welcome to this executive briefing where we're covering the topic of AI, which is a topic on everybody's lips at the moment, and especially within Salesforce and Salesforce ecosystem. So we're very excited that so many of you have taken some time out to join ourselves today. The panel today is comprised of a number of professionals from both Bluewave. Wayne, if you could give us the next slide there. I'm Harry Dunne. I'm the CEO of Bluewave. Bluewave are a Salesforce Summit partner. We've been working in the ecosystem with Salesforce for the last 12 years, and we work right across the UK and Ireland. And we have a very significant footprint, particularly within public sector and particularly right across the UK. Salesforce is one of our public sector is one of the, or is in fact, I believe, the fastest growing sector within the Salesforce world globally. And AI is going to play and is starting to play a huge role within the systems right across that ecosystem. So I think this topic is very, very timely because we've got some really exciting demonstrations and content from both ourselves and our colleagues within the Salesforce world, and they'll introduce themselves as we move along this morning. As I said, Salesforce public sector is one of the fastest growing areas within the Salesforce ecosystem. That's right across the world, and that's no different in the UK. And we're working with many public sector organizations who are using Salesforce on a daily basis to meet their needs. And we couldn't be more excited about the role that AI is starting to play within that, and indeed Agentforce, I'm sure many of you have heard a lot about. So the whole purpose of today is to give a very sort of brief background in AI and then focus in very closely on what Salesforce is doing in that world. And I'm not sure if many of you follow the Salesforce quarterly results, but they were released yesterday. They were very, very strong, and they're looking to the future as even stronger. And a big portion of that is because they are so confident and excited about the role AI is going to play to help Salesforce move into more and more areas within the public sector and beyond. So that list is some of the clients we're working with. We'd love an opportunity to talk to you directly. So if at any point after this webinar you'd like to talk to Bluewave directly as a partner, what we're doing with organizations, please feel free to contact us. Our details are there on the screen. Our website's on the screen. Wayne, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and looking forward to hearing questions from everybody as we progress through the morning. Thanks again. Over to you, Wayne.
Cheers, Harry. So let me introduce myself. My name is Wayne Gann. I'm a consultant and senior instructor with Salesforce and Bluewave. I've been working in the Salesforce ecosystem for over 16 years now, and we've been working with Bluewave since its inception 24 years ago. And I'm 15 years as a certified Trailhead Academy instructor, working in a lot of different clouds. So just to put it out there at the start, what's your impression of how often do you interact with AI? And if you ask that question in a room, you're going to get tons of answers, whether it's daily, hourly, weekly. Hey, I never interact with AI. Well, AI is everywhere. Whether it's from the first thing in the morning to suggesting your scheduling improvements, whether it's crafting emails on your behalf, whether it's tracking your fitness and sleep patterns, suggesting the best routes to work. AI is everywhere within our lives. So if you have a Netflix subscription, you get your recommendations based on what you've watched before. Again, with Amazon, the same. With Spotify, we have OCR, optical character recognition, extracting text and data from images and documents and turn that into our business ready data. Whether it's your hedge fund manager making enhanced decision making, by using biometrics and facial recognition, whether you're seeing ads on a web page. Hey, if you're watching Match of the Day and you get that stat at the end that says, what was the expected goals for Liverpool versus Newcastle last night? Yeah, that is all done with AI. So it's everywhere, even down to more important things like cancer diagnostics and drug research. But what is AI? We hear this term everywhere. Oh, it's AI. Well, what is it? Well, it stands for, basically AI is there to, and it stands for, it's a field of computing science to create intelligent systems capable of performing tasks that we usually require some sort of human interaction. So traditionally, we would create programs we would take some sort of input. A computer programmer would write an algorithm to take that program and would give us outputs. But where AI is different, it involves developing computer systems and algorithms that can analyze, learn from, and make decisions or predictions based on large amounts of data. So what it can be thought of is the ability for a human to perform skills that are typically, or for a computer to perform skills that would typically need human intuition, inference, or reasoning. And this is done through machine learning. Okay, so what is machine learning? Well, it's a subfield of AI that gives computers the ability to learn without explicitly being programmed. So again, traditionally, you would go and you would, as a programmer, take your data, know what you want as your output, and then work with that and write your algorithms. But when it comes to machine learning, what you're doing is you're doing this program through supervised learning and unsupervised learning. And the goal is to create computer models that exhibit intelligent behaviors like humans. So it starts with data, and then the computer will learn from that and get better at developing. So take an example of making a journey, whether it's to travel from one side of the city to another. You want to know how long it is going to take you to travel. Well, there are factors involved in that. Very simply, one factor is the distance. But to travel 5 miles out of London or Dublin, at 5 o'clock on a Friday is much more different than traveling 5 miles into London at 2 o'clock on a Sunday morning. So there are lots of factors that use this. So if you want to predict what your round trip will take, you've got to add in here what you want to find out the minutes, but there are other factors, whether it's a weekend, whether it's a day, what time of the day, what the weather factors are. So what you'll do is you'll start off with your simple area, okay? You'll assign your inputs, you'll give weights. You take those data, you model it again. You adjust the weights to take into account. Well, if it's a weekend and it's raining, it's different than it being a Tuesday evening and raining. So the timings are modeled on that. And again, it's put in, rinse and repeat, get your better set of data. So you add complexity into that. So one of the complexities are, if you have your data here and it's raining on a Tuesday evening, you're tired, you don't want to go. Well, that's different than if you want to go and say, it's a Saturday morning, I gotta go. There's lots more factors. Traffic being number one. And this is done through what's called reinforced learning. Taking your data, using machine learning to model the program to try it again, yes? So it's an intelligent program that takes actions in a dynamic environment. And what it wants is reward. Like a great example of this is 1997, Deep Blue from IBM beating Garry Kasparov. Let's go on from that. In 2008, there's actually a newer one called Stockfish that actually beats all other chess AIs. And what this has done initially was learning from programs, which was if your piece is here and your pieces are there, this is the correct move to do. Now it uses a neural network to basically learn, and it's fully neural network and is essentially virtually unbeatable. But what are neural networks? Well, this is a type of machine learning that's designed to recognize patterns in data. Whether it's a convolutional, using image resolution and processing, whether it's recurrent, using sequential data like speech output, or generative adversarial, okay, which basically creates a generator and a disseminator. But each neural network is carefully tuned for a particular task, and each neural network is an AI method that teaches computers to process data in a way that's inspired like the human brain. It's a mix of nodes, layers, weights, biases, and a bunch of math all together. And they mimic the function of the human brain. And it relies on training data to learn and improve its accuracy over time. So that speech recognition can take minutes as opposed to taking, hours to days if it was done by a human expert. But Salesforce itself has been at the forefront of AI. So back in 2014, Mark Benioff said that Salesforce will become an AI first company. And whether that's from, our acquisitions of RateIQ or Prediction.io or Bonaboo, or whether it's introducing opportunity scoring in 2015, whether it's introducing Salesforce Einstein, prediction builder, recommendation builder, Einstein search, Einstein's GPT, generative pre-trained transformers, yes? Whether it's coming to the future, where you've even got, code GPT now, yes? So the ability to be able to generate code based on your natural language inputs. So Salesforce is in the business of extracting away complexity for you guys. And we're pretty good at it. Okay, we provide you with the tools. Some of the tools here are like Einstein Prediction Builder. So this uses machine learning algorithms and neural networks to discover patterns in your data and then apply that to make predictions. Okay, so those predictions could be binary predictions. So is this lead likely to convert? Will the student graduate? How much is this deal actually worth? How much will this item sell for? And we use those models. We use those historical data to impact and see what your future will be. Something like next best actions. Okay, so this with next best actions, what you can do is you can use one of our components that we've given you, put it on your page, and then tie it in that we will then, based on recommendations, based on your object, we can run a strategy flow that says, if this is your data, this is the route to take. It's done through a kind of flow builder. We take your recommendation record. And then if the user, decides to take that recommendation, then we can update your records on that behalf. We've also got our bots here. So with Einstein bots, we can take repetitive tasks away from you. So what can we do? Case deflection. Somebody's looking for a password reset. Okay, we can have them have it automatically, have it working without the need for human interference, yes? Renewals. So the point of this is you get customers having reduced wait times to process. And they can get their answers immediately in a chat on a 24/7 basis. So the idea is that you can save time for your agents and your agents can handle multiple cases at once. But now we've got what's called generative AI. So generative AI is a type of a technology that can create new conversations, new visuals, new sounds from a base of learning that we have. And generative AI is the paradigm shift. So if we take some examples of how long we got to 100 million users adapting a technology, and with the World Wide Web, it was 4.75 years. When it came to Facebook, 4.5 years. When it came to something on our mobile device, let's say Instagram, 2.3 years. TikTok, 1.5 years. And if you compare that to generative AI, chat GPT, and they hit 100 million users in 2 months. So what generative AI is, it's taking large sets of data, and we're not looking at gigabits, we're looking at terabytes, petabytes scales. Taking that information, taking your data, and using generative AI to then create new text, new videos, new audio, new code. Okay. So in terms of the public sector here, how can you leverage generative AI? Well, we've already given you the tools here in terms of creating sales emails, call summaries, call explorers, forecast guidance, service replies, work summaries, email content creation, even the generation, as I said, of natural language code. And these are in beta. And you can see the cost, either increases in productivity or reduction in cases here. Obviously, when we're using your data, there has to be a level of trust. So we incorporate here what we determine is our Einstein trust layer. So Einstein trust layer is for you guys, and it's all about protecting your data. Okay. So you need to be able to trust generative AI with your data, and also we need to balance the benefits of it. So i.e. to produce a prompt. Okay. What we have is we want your data recovered securely. We do what's called dynamic grounding. So we take your customer data in your CRM and we use it to enrich the prompts that you want to use. However, we mask your data. We never give personally identifiable information to your large language models. So we prompt against bad, we defend against bad prompts. Now, here then, we will be able to take that, push it into our model. We never store your data. Your data is never stored afterwards. It's encrypted in flight. So once the response is generated and sent back to Salesforce, we forget your data. It's forgotten by the large language model. We scan for toxicity, we edit, we send back the data, we demask it. So that brings us to the end of this part here. Sorry, I'm going to discuss Agentforce in the future, so we're going to come back into that one in a few moments. PPA, I'm going to hand over to you, my friend.
Thank you for the intro there. I'm going to take a little bit of time here to talk about some of the transformation aspects about AI and Agentforce. So a little bit about myself. I'm Paul Picker-Lewis. I lead our digital transformation team for Salesforce Public Sector and Education. And my team and I focus on the non-technical dimensions. There's obviously a lot of business aspects to consider in terms of which use cases you prioritize, how you look at value, the organizational kind of dimensions of it. And so this is what we're gonna focus on today. But a little bit of context setting here. Oh, sorry, you don't see my camera. Okay. My screen went away. Okay. A little bit of context setting. So we have some data we've collected from a few different research organizations and analysts about the opportunity for AI and really Gen AI in particular. So as you can see here, a recent survey from IDC shows that enabling adoption of Gen AI is top priority. Of course, with some of the persistent dimensions that we've seen over the years continuing to be present. But there's a huge opportunity behind it. That's what's driving the prioritization. It's not just jumping on the hype, but there's a belief, a confidence that Gen AI can help serve customers faster. There is a lot of operational and process efficiency to be achieved. If we look at kind of just the opportunity in Western governments, $1.74 trillion of productivity that can be unlocked. And that's because a lot of what government does is highly automatable. There are a lot of workflows and cases that could benefit from further automation or driving self-service to reduce the burden on civil servants. But it's important that we pick the right use cases and the right use cases at the right time. We want to make sure that AI and Gen AI more specifically, and agents are not a solution in search of a problem. As we saw in the previous slide, there are many problems that they can resolve, or rather many areas of improvement, but let's pick the right ones so that we can get the best value fastest. And some of these areas that AI and again, agentic AI in particular can benefit include even at the policy level, helping to understand existing policy, digest it for consumers or help shape it. Of course, in the fraud and audit context, identifying misalignments to policy or anomalies in applications for benefits or for kind of financial assistance. As we just heard a minute ago, there's certainly a lot of areas in the pure IT space in terms of code generation, and then certain horizontal ones as well, summarizations and recommendations. This will be probably an early context in which government agencies and businesses take advantage of Gen AI to digest conversations, whether they be calls or chats or emails, and provide that quick summary, speed up processes. And also in terms of overall optimization of resources. So we see a lot of customers starting to explore the idea of having AI to help both understand and kind of maybe allocate funds and potential benefits to those most in need, or where it can have the biggest impact. It's a common challenge that the organizations have in public sector. Of course, this should be familiar to all of you, of some degree of backlog. Could be about issues and inquiries about a particular service, or the actual service backlogs, applications for benefits, for licenses, for authorizations, for permits. Is a perennial challenge, and adding a degree of automation and intelligent automation to help manage maybe the simpler steps or the more routine transactions or requests will help reduce those backlogs, and for certain contexts perhaps eliminate them altogether. You can run agents in parallel to, well, theoretically to infinity, so you don't have a wait time to process more simple things like questions coming in for support. Or kind of basic inquiries. And two sides of the same coin here, increasing the pace of delivery. So being able to execute these processes faster, produce determination for eligibility or for an application for a particular authorization, etc., doing it faster by virtue of the fact that there's less effort and less dependency on just the civil service to execute it. All of these things serve to improve trust and experience. And you can look at it as a byproduct of efficiency, but certainly it's a co-equal priority. By having a smoother and more personalized experience in interacting with a particular agency or public sector organization, it implies also a degree of confidence in the agency's underlying processes and services. We've seen this with studies from McKinsey and others, that a better experience just can up to double the trust in that organization. And of course, there's some challenges that also need to be addressed in terms of being able to realize these benefits. So we see here another survey from McKinsey, State of AI. There's a series of different challenges that organizations are facing or perceived to be facing that they need to address, or at least partially address, before really being able to realize some of the value of AI and Gen AI and agentic AI overall. So the first one, the most important, according to the surveyed customers, is strategy. Going back to the cartoon I was showing, it's important to understand how you're going to prioritize use cases and develop at least a preliminary plan for addressing and for adopting AI in order to get the best value out of it and to control the risks that may come with implementing it. Followed by not too far behind talent and data. So making sure that you have the right expertise within your organization, that everyone's starting to get familiar with the potential of AI, how it works, where to apply it, how to use it, and the data. So ensuring that you have enough quality data to feed a model, machine learning model, as we looked at before, that helps power these technologies. If you think about it in the analogy of, if AI is the engine, then data is the fuel. So it's important to really start to improve the quality and connectedness and harmonization of that data. It needs to make sense to a model what the relationship of different information across a broader process is in order to be able to start to act on our behalf as well. And as we see here from our own survey, there's just one quote I pulled here. It's important to focus on, initially at least, on simpler use cases that are easier to kind of implement, to develop a proof of concept or proof of value following that, rather than large, kind of lofty, complex projects. These initial use cases help to create, as I was mentioning, some of that skills development, helps to validate the value hypothesis, and helps to develop that framework for scaling use cases. So it's important to select kind of smaller, more bite-sized, so to speak, pieces of the business process for an organization and experiment around there before scaling those up and before moving to perhaps more foundational use cases. And the reason for this, one of many reasons, is because it helps to increase the chance of success of a project. Now, I want to be clear here that there needs to be some expectation of failure or missed targets. That's the whole point of experimentation. We don't assume that every experiment will be successful, but you want a certain degree of success. And here we see from Salesforce's own data and then from McKinsey that there are a lot of pilots and experiments happening across different flavors of AI and across different customer types. But so far, there's been limited scaling of those. So we need to increase that success rate. And how do we do that? Well, we have here kind of the recipe for success, the formula, if you will, that will help build that initial strategy for AI and equally for non-AI technologies, and ensure better and increasing, accelerating results, if you will, from these experiments and from the overall AI adoption beyond that. So as I mentioned, the value framework is a key one to figure out early. So there's different dimensions of value, of course, and different considerations. Sometimes they can't all be compared to apples. So it's important to establish up front, as a framework for experimentation, as a framework for scaling, what's most important, or rather what's the weighting between lowest investment, greatest return on investment, fastest time to value, lowest risk. All of these are important, but to what weighting? And that may change over time. Then even what type of value? Are we talking about cutting IT costs, saving money on existing kind of hosting with IT cost deflection? Are we talking about administrative efficiencies, which for agentic AI is typically the objective? Or are we talking about the outcomes, impacting the overall mission of the agency, producing better outcomes through, again, allocation of resources, or kind of higher, let's say, population health outcomes, depending on what your mission is. So, of course, all of these factors need to be considered, and this framework revisited periodically to ensure that it's driving value according to your priorities at the moment. Of course, skills, so we talked about this briefly, but it's important at the organizational level to develop know-how. and expertise in not just the technology itself. It's often less about the technology, but again, how to properly apply it and get the benefit of it, but also at the individual level. So what does this mean in terms of how your employees might be using, let's say, things like ChatGPT in their own personal lives, or maybe as a controlled, experimentation with guardrails within a business context potentially? Are there courses or trainings that people can take just to understand, as an end consumer of AI, how to best leverage it? For instance, my team just had a training on Monday from one of our solution engineering colleagues who did prompt engineering training for us. This has nothing to do with Salesforce's technology. This was to help us better make better use of ChatGPT, Google's Gemini, our own Einstein, by having more specific prompts that produce more specific results and better aligned to our expectations. So this is an important element beyond just how to leverage the technology from an IT standpoint. The data, can't say this enough. This is maybe the most foundational step that needs to be taken. Doesn't mean you have to get all your data cleaned up and aligned and connected up front. That's a persistent challenge, an ongoing process, but getting enough of it, or at least getting an understanding of where the data sits, what is the data quality, what data quality do you need to get to, cleaning up some of it, connecting more of it, and creating a process of kind of perpetual evolution to continue to improve that and provide better and better inputs to both non-AI and AI processes. Then the technology, what tools are the most appropriate, what are fit for purpose to address your specific use cases, whether that's some from Salesforce, as we've talked about, and others from maybe other vendors in different contexts. And lastly, the organization. So AI is really meant to be a productivity booster, but there are obviously, it's a more transformational change than even other IT solutions. And there's important change management dimension to any AI rollout. Then, of course, organizational governance questions. And I'll leave you with this. So, of course, people always talk about the digital transformation is about technology, but actually, it's less about the technology and more about the people. This is again where my team's really focused, is to help with everything surrounding that. This is very much in keeping with our motto in terms of agents. We believe that humans with agents drive customer success together. So thank you. That's me. Guess I'm passing back to Wayne for a brief intro now to our demo.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Just to come back into here, I'm going to talk for just a few minutes, and I'm going to hand it over to Simon to do a demo for you guys as well. But I put this slide together before, and it says, what's coming in the future? Where does AI go from here? And I had a thought about it over the last few weeks, and I probably need to change this slide, because what's coming in the future? Well, the fact is, the future is actually here. So in October of this year, 5 weeks ago, Mark Benioff, the CEO of Salesforce, we announced Agentforce, and Mark said that Agentforce is redefining what's possible in the business and beyond, ushering in a new era of AI abundance and limitless workforces that augment every employee, build deeper customer relationships, and drive unprecedented growth and profitability. Brave statement. So, but what is Agentforce? Well, Agentforce is a set of tools that we have that brings humans with agents that you're going to develop, or we give it to you straight out of the box, some of them as well, with your data, with your CRM, to make better choices. Okay, this is built on the data cloud itself, and we've rolled it out with standard agents across over 15 industry clouds within Salesforce itself. So we're seeing 130% year-on-year customer growth within Salesforce, and this has already been used here, whether it's using your Salesforce platform, using your Einstein AI, using your flows to get more out of your data, to get more with what you have. But what is Agentforce? Well, it's a set of tools that allows you, with your agent builder, with the reasoning engine here, to allow you to customize agents. You're going to hear about topics and actions that we can build on top of your current processes, i.e. on top of the flows you already have in your business that you've already invested in, on top of the Apex that you already have, in order to be able to take your data and develop prompts and essentially build automations on top of that. And these automations can either be autonomous, they can work completely, what can it do? Or do all of this for me. Take a question from in the service. Paul's demo is going to cover the Service Cloud. It's a great demo, and you'll see it in action, whereby questions are going to come in, they're going to process it, and the whole idea is to take the whole process and have it autonomous. That by the end of it, the questions will be answered, or we will raise a case. But takes the whole human aspect out of it. Or it can be assistive, a coaching sales representatives, etc. But there are 5 attributes that come within Agentforce, within your agents itself. You define what the agent does, you define what knowledge it has access to do to take that on board, what actions it can perform within your flows. As I said, we can reuse the investment that you've already made in Salesforce. However, obviously we're interpreting this, so we set up guardrails, what it can do, what it can't do, what it's not allowed to do, and where you want it to work. And we've already, as I said, rolled this out across some of our clouds already. So we have an Einstein sales agent here that can answer. So it's all about, we can specify when we set it up how to customize the language, can send emails on your behalf to inbound leads in your conversational tone, so it becomes personal, okay? The one we're going to look at is the service agent, whereby with service agents, we used to have chatbots. They were brilliant at deflecting those first calls coming in, those initial actions. Will this solve your problem? But we needed to go further. And your traditional chatbot would link to a knowledge base. While they were good, expensive to build, expensive to maintain, you had to come up with the conversational tree, etc. Where Agentforce resolves this, because we are going to answer your questions in your voice, in your tone. You're going to set it up in terms of saying what it can do, how it's going to work. We can even have it understanding images. So if somebody says, I have a problem with my toaster, and then we say, okay, which toaster, what model is it? And they go, I don't know, but they upload a picture of it, then we can interpret that on your behalf. But we can also generate our own custom agents. Generally speaking, if you describe it, Agentforce can build it. You're going to describe this in your natural language, and we will take that on board. We will suggest here knowledge, we'll suggest actions, and Agentforce will reason intuitively and respond reliably to complex requests, all within your guardrails, and that's really important. So the roadmap for Agentforce is massive, safe harbor. You know, this is can all be changed at a moment's notice, but you'll see, I'm not going to concentrate on this too much, just to give you an idea of where this is going and the investment that Salesforce is doing. So Agentforce itself here can be autonomous or assistive. It retrieves your data on demand. It has an agent builder. It has a prompt builder. So in terms of getting your prompts correctly. and has the model builder to interact with with machine learning and your large language models. So how should you be planning your future with AI? Simon is going to come on now, and Simon's going to talk to you quickly and give you a demo to show Agentforce in action.
Thank you, Wayne. So good morning and afternoon, everybody. I'm Simon Hannaford. I'm a solution engineer in Salesforce's public sector practice in the UK and Ireland. And I'm going to show you a quick demo of how agents are potentially going to support the Foreign Office in the UK, and certainly consular services, who we work with quite extensively. And certainly in times of crisis, they really need to be able to scale and rapidly serve multiple citizens. And they need to be able to allow AI to handle the kind of non-crisis activity, that's the day-to-day stuff they normally handle. So I'm showing you here an agent that is being accessed via a web interface, so messaging in-app web, but equally it could be having the same conversation with me via WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, or actually even voice on a telephone, which is really important for accessibility, because it means we can take the agent to where the citizen is, to the interface they're comfortable with, rather than asking them to come to us always. So I'm going to ask a slightly more complicated question than normal. Most people, when they go on trips around the world, they will check the travel guidance, and they will want to know whether it's safe to visit the places they're wanting to go. But rarely is somebody going to just one place. Often people are going on multi-trips, and they have quite complex travel itineraries, and we need to be able to kind of support that. Because at the moment it's very much tell us where you want to go, we'll show you, for one country what's going on. So you can see here the agent has gone and looked at our knowledge base. It's checked that this is a topic it's allowed to discuss, and as it's successfully identified the topic, it's come back with quite a detailed and rich response as to whether it's safe. And obviously within Myanmar, it's not recommended, so it's advising against travel, but saying in Bangkok, in Thailand, we're looking pretty good. It's giving me some advice, and we're always reminding people to check their passports are up to date. But I can now start to maybe ask a little bit more. So I've actually got some questions about, is there anything cultural I need to know? What should I be thinking about while I'm there? So again, the bot's going to go away. It's going to look at the knowledge base. It's going to check that this is something it knows about, and is going to come back with the response. And you can see here, actually, it's come back with some really useful information about Myanmar. So that you need to dress modestly, you should be respectful of religion, and in Thailand, you need to really think about the monarchy. You certainly don't want to say anything disrespectful about the king, which is great. So now I've got some fantastic information about visiting Myanmar, but nothing's really happened in terms of actions. This is a generative response, but it's been trained and it's got guardrails against it. Actually, now if I want to do something more complicated, like actually get a case raised, actually has some support from the consular team, I'm going to ask it to do that. So I'm going to ask the agent to raise a case for me because I need to get an apostille for a marriage, because I'm going to get married overseas. So this is starting to get a bit more into leveraging the actions and flows and Apex that Wayne was saying you absolutely might have already configured and built. So it's asking just for a little bit of information for me to see if I already exist in the system, and it's just looking at email addresses, but I might want more levels of security here to validate the identity, but we've kept it light for the purposes of the webinar. So I'm just giving it my email address, and I'm going to be Maria for the purposes of this demo. So the bot's now going away and again looking at the topics. And actually, as I'm logged in as a consular agent, I've already been notified that a new case has hit the queue. But what the agent has done is it says, great, here's your case, your reference number, this is what it's the subject, and this is what you're requesting in the status. Let me know if you need anything else. So I'm now going to show you what that looks like kind of behind the scenes. So this is the service console, which is used by Salesforce customers around the world. And you can see already that a new work item has come in for somebody in consular services, and they're able to access that. So the agent, rather than just respond with a generative answer, has actually gone in and taken action inside the system. So it's created a case with the subject, with the description that was provided by the user. So what does that look like when we get right under the hood? And I'll show you actually how you train, how you build those agents, and how simple the kind of interfaces that we use to do that. So I'm looking at the agent builder screen here, and what you can see is very much actually what's really going on, what the agent is doing, what the reasoning engine is looking at, and how that can be tweaked. So we've got the topic of travel advice. And as I mentioned to you earlier, the first thing the agent does is it looks at the descriptions of the topics and makes sure that this is something it's allowed to answer questions about. And anything outside of that, it'll politely decline or move it over to a human who can handle that interaction. So we've got a set of instructions. We want it to be professional and calm. This is advice around travel and other instructions. But very importantly, this topic has an action. So this one is saying, right, go and look at this knowledge base. And the instructions are very clear that if it's not in that knowledge base, don't look at it. But I can see the user prompt coming in. I can see how the agent has interpreted the instructions, and it's written a logical order set of instructions from what in my instructions may not have been that logical. It's identified the actions it can take. It's now done some reasoning, taken more user prompts, again, taking the instructions. And you can see the real kind of backwards and forwards here of the agent interpreting what's gone on, what the citizen's been asking, and ultimately taking those flows and apexes and using that to actually do work, take over from what a human would have done for a relatively low value task, and is allowing those agents to focus on maybe looking after vulnerable citizens who are in a crisis situation or in need of a more personalized activity. So you can see here all the kind of topics that this particular agent is able to access, including things like case management, as I was just describing. So that concludes the demo. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for your time. And I'll just hand back.
Thanks very much, everybody, for listening to the session. I'm actually going through the demo with the team. I think a way to consider this session really is a taster of some of the things that we can all collaboratively offer in relation to Agentforce, in relation to the AI position of these tools. So with Bluewave, what we have built is an adaptation of some very successful accelerators we've delivered in the past. And we've just gone live and just announced our first accelerator in Agentforce for customers, which, as you can tell from the team that we have in Bluewave, it's very pragmatic and it's very educational based. We will teach you how a lot more detail about how AI works. We'll talk through the ethical constraints of AI and the considerations of the sector we need to go to, and then slowly delve into Agentforce itself. And with you in a private workshop, go through building your first agents and getting a feel for how the whole Agentforce environment works, either in a greenfield Salesforce deployment or in your existing service deployment. Then in a single day, we're going to start looking at what Paul Pickle-Lewis was saying, is talking about use cases and talking about, right, well, let's look at what you do and let's look at what your potentially your citizen service or your customer service or your internal service is, and try to define with you what would be good practical use cases that you can build out with your demo to show some success with building this. And that's all in a single day. And our plan is then to extend that to, we are about to release a 5-day version of that where we work with you to build a proof of concept. And you have a proof of concept environment, which you can then use as your business case to continue with an AI deployment and see the results of that. And then even a 20-day version where we take you all the way to putting something out into a production environment with you as a kind of a beta build, so that you'll see it as a limited release and picking the use cases, but going all the way through it and providing lots of skills transfer and allowing you to take over the build yourselves moving forward. So at the moment, we will be posting out a link to everybody for our single day discovery, which is a variant on the very successful AI accelerators that we ran in the past, but much more focused on Agentforce and typically service at the moment. But online, Salesforce also offers plenty of other information if you can go to the next slide, Wayne, there, on their trailhead. The QR code will bring you straight to the Salesforce trails on Agentforce and AI, that will bring you through a number of the concepts that Simon has just demonstrated to you and get you in a trail building your own first start parts and your prompts and your grounding and your agents themselves. I think that's open up to questions now if there's questions coming in. So
well, I'll actually kick off because one has just come in here, possibly one for Simon. So it's clear that Agentforce can deal with low administrative type tasks, but obviously it's accelerating into a lot more. Where do you see this going?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that. Can you hear me okay before I start talking?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. We're going to see, there'll be a proliferation of agents that can handle the basic things very, very quickly. I think within the public sector, where the opportunity for the long term exists is for the complex tasks taken on by high value employees. And I've seen it take months to train people to do assessments on benefit values, for example, to take all of the factors into account, because the information is often unstructured. It'll be in some huge policy document that really requires an expert to interpret. But actually agents can do that now. They don't need structured data. You can point them at those policy documents, point them at the grounded information about the applicant, and quickly work out what their benefit amount might be or what a change in that value should be based on their change of circumstances. And the agent can make that change, if we give it the ability to do so. And that gives us the option to avoid over and underpayments and really get rid of the backlogs that exist in those kinds of services.
Perfect. Thanks for that. Just one more I see coming in, and I guess it's to the panel in general, so feel free to anybody to take that. But the data, is it structured? Is it unstructured in terms of how you're operating and integrating with the AI?
I suppose I'll just come on to this one, Simon, if you don't mind. So the data can be a mixture, Harry, because we can take data that when you talk about structured or unstructured, and I think I mentioned that in the presentation, like you can take data from your PDFs, from your documents, things that aren't typically in a structured database, table, field, row, which we would class as structured. We can take the unstructured. So in Simon's demo there, I think the part of the information that we get in terms of those travel arrangements aren't just taken from the actual, a table. They're taken from crawling the website. So Simon's demo goes off into that website and takes the data from there. So that unstructured data is then used to give us our responses. So if that changes, our response is up to date. We don't have to tell it. So the data can be what you want and how you want it delivered. So this is where the benefits come.
Thanks, Wayne. Thanks for that. I think that's all the questions I have, unless anybody else has any questions. I think we're right on time anyway. We're just coming up to 12 o'clock. So I want to take this opportunity to, first of all, thank all of you for joining us this morning. Hope you found it a very useful session. Paul, Wayne, we're very excited to talk to clients about the Agentforce Accelerator, and we're having a huge response to it. So please reach out to us. Our website is at the bottom of the slide there. You can post in a submission and we'll be straight back on to you. And I want to thank Simon and Paul, or PPA as we know him now, for a really good session. The guys from Salesforce have some fantastic content, and I know that they're available to you as well. So thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you at our next enterprise briefing. Have a great rest of the day.